Bulletcast for life.
Welcome everybody to Under the Radar. My name is Brandon, and unfortunately, we're going to have to start off with a somber note. As you guys all know, probably the biggest story of the year, Roman Reigns came out on Raw yesterday and announced that he has been living with leukemia for 11 years. 11 years, and he was able to put in remission back then when he was 22, which is crazy. I mean, I'm 24, and someone who's a healthy college football athlete being diagnosed with cancer, and God bless him for being able to, beat it that time, and hopefully he can come out and beat it again. So he had to relinquish the Universal Championship. No news. I don't think there's gonna be news unless Roman Reigns says anything of how long it's gonna be. Is he retiring? Is he, what's the whole situation? It's just like a whole whirlwind right now. I didn't even watch it when I found out. I was just scrolling through Instagram and I saw the post and I was like, what the hell? Like, this just kind of came out of nowhere. And, I'm always giving Roman shit on the Bulletcast, and I'm not going to take back anything I said about his character. I mean, I know what I say. It's all, I'm being from the heart. I say what I felt about his character, how I felt like he should have been, been a heel or all that other bullshit. But it's, this is real life. He said on Raw that his name's Joe, and that was Joe Anoa'i or whatever his last name is. That wasn't Roman Reigns out there. That was the real guy talking, and I give him shit, but just real talk. God bless him. Thoughts and prayers out to him. I hope he comes back. Yes, this is me saying I hope Roman Reigns comes back healthy, and hopefully he's able to put that in remission. Hopefully he's cancer-free eventually. This is just, it's crazy. It seems like nobody knew about it except for maybe like the inner of inner circles, maybe Vince McMahon, Kevin Dunn, maybe Triple H. I mean, who actually knows what was going on there? I feel kind of bad for the announcers because I don't think the announcers knew at all. Maybe Renee knew because maybe Dean knew. So, but for them, they have to be out there for all 3 hours, maybe being able to sneak back during a commercial break and, console him. I mean, Renee and Corey down there in developmental with him. Michael Cole's probably called, maybe, I don't know if Michael Cole's ever taken a week off within the past 5 years, but he's probably called every single TV match Roman Reigns has ever had. And for him for them to be blindsided like this, it's weird. I know this is a podcast where I'm supposed to be eloquent and everything, but it's just kind of hard to put into words what to make of this situation. I don't know if I'm in the minority on this, but I really did enjoy the Dean Ambrose heel turn at the end. I know people are going to say, oh, it was bad timing, just have the happy ending, but I mean, that's real emotion, that's real shit going on there, and with Roman stepping away, who knows what the future holds for Roman. And with Dean turning on Seth, like, that was like real emotion. And yeah, you have some idiots in the crowd who are cheering for Dean, but for the most part, a lot of people were like, why is he doing this on this night? He's deciding to turn on his brother, the only one he has right now. And I enjoyed it just because it had real emotion, and there's not a lot of that in wrestling at this point. I think that's what made this Raw one of the better Raws in a while, is because it had emotion and it felt realer than normal, which I keep saying, I love New Japan because it feels real. It treats it like a sport, and you don't have to treat it like a sport for it to feel real. I mean, yes, it would help to have more of a sports-like feel, but just treating everything with more gravitas and feeling more real, I think that is what made this show a lot more enjoyable. And I've said it before, hopefully Roman gets healthy, he comes back, and who knows what the future holds for him. If he's out for, 6 months, he's out for 6 years, maybe he never comes back and wrestles again. I really don't know. I'm not a leukemia expert. I don't really know. I mean, I know of leukemia, I know what it kind of is, but I don't exactly know the treatment and he's beat it once, so hopefully they caught it early enough to where he can beat it again. I mean, he's an athlete. He's always going through he's always going through physicals and blood tests, and he's known about this for 11 years, so I'm pretty sure he's taken constant blood tests to make sure that nothing, that if it comes back they catch it right away, so it's going to be over within hopefully a couple months. And I mean, I'm not putting any pressure on him to come back at all. If he never wants to wrestle again and he just wants to focus on being a father to his kid and, being the best person he can be, he's made enough money to where he doesn't need to work a day in his life. He's been the top guy in WWE for the past 4 years at this point, 3-4 years, and he's main evented every WrestleMania since 31. He doesn't need to come back to wrestling. If he wants to, great, but it all comes down to health and how he feels, and if his family and his friends don't want him to come back, because, I mean, wrestling isn't going to further the cancer, at least I don't think, if, exerting energy and traveling all over the place. And, I mean, that's the crazy thing is, who knows how long he's known. Last week it was business as normal. It just seemed like any other episode of Raw. There are some red flags out there because Roman didn't appear in any of the house shows, so I was wondering, like, oh, maybe he took a weekend off. Maybe he got a little injured, just kind of healing up for Crown Jewel. So my thought process is probably he got diagnosed probably after Raw or SmackDown. Maybe, I mean, I assume after Raw because there'd be no way that they would do like a normal thing before Raw. So probably, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, they got something and they just kept it tight and just didn't tell anybody. And Roman came out there and did the speech, and that was, it was a great speech. It was a great promo by him just because it was real and it felt real, and the emotion with him crying, Seth crying, and Dean Ambrose out there just doing the Shield thing, probably for the last time, who knows. It was crazy to see that, and it just kind of puts life in perspective of, Roman Reigns, a top guy, has everything he would want, money, fame, good body, he looks good, and yet just cancer's a bitch, man. It doesn't discriminate. It hits anybody, and God bless him. Hopefully speedy recovery. And back to the wrestling part of it, they announced Crown Jewel. It's going to be Brock Lesnar versus Braun Strowman for the championship. I don't know what they're going to do. I assumed Roman was going to win that match. So do they put it on Braun? Because it looks like they're going Braun as a babyface now. They've done they turned Braun Strowman, it looks like, and they turned Elias on Raw. So they're definitely filling the void of Roman leaving, as filling in with Braun, and Elias has some top guys, Elias isn't a top guy, but you know what I'm saying. Some new baby faces to kind of even out the mix. And my thought process is, with the Dean Ambrose Seth Rollins thing, that's going to be just red hot if Dean comes out next week and cuts a fire promo. And I think the money match, if it's true that Ronda and Charlotte is going to main event WrestleMania, if they want to do that, that's fine. So you don't need like a big time championship match to headline WrestleMania. So if you can get the title on Dean somehow, and you have Seth fighting from underneath, and maybe he wins the Royal Rumble, maybe he just kind of gets there however he gets there, because we got SmackDown over there, maybe Daniel Bryan wins the Royal Rumble. So if it comes down to Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins and Daniel Bryan being the two favorites for the Royal Rumble, I'm perfectly fine with that. But I'm thinking like this has to end with Seth Rollins being the champion at WrestleMania, with him avenging for Roman. Maybe like, just imagine if the first time we see Roman since this time is at WrestleMania, Seth Rollins wins the championship and Roman comes out and embraces him, and they do this whole thing together. I mean, that'd be amazing. I know they want Ronda Rousey to main event WrestleMania. Maybe they promised that in her contract, but at this point, just that emotion of Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns being together for the first time since Roman's announcement, with Seth winning the championship that he had to give up at WrestleMania. I mean, it writes itself. I don't know what they're going. I mean, I've said in the past, I think Braun Strowman is much better equipped to be like an Andre the Giant guy, where he isn't on every single show. Maybe he just does the house show loop and he comes on TV every once in a while to do some big storylines, but I just don't see Braun Strowman being an everyday world champion. So, I mean, my thought is, if you just want to hotshot this, you can have Brock Lesnar win the championship. you can have Brock defend at Survivor Series, you get the title on Seth, and you can have Seth kind of be in the role of Roman Reigns, or you can do the slow build of Braun does it, Braun wins the championship, maybe Drew McIntyre screws him over, and Dean Ambrose gets the championship. So then you can have Braun and Drew face off and have their big thing whenever they're going to do that, and then eventually just have Dean as the heel champion, top guy on top guy on Raw. When you have the face on SmackDown being AJ Styles, it looks like maybe Daniel Bryan. So you have a Raw has a heel champion, SmackDown has the face champion. So I mean, yeah, it's a crazy time right now. Biggest story of the wrestling year. I mean, this is kind of bigger than wrestling. It's getting a lot of publicity. I think any publicity, like, it's not as serious as Lou Gehrig retiring when he was at the top of his game, but I mean, it's kind of close to it, to be honest. I mean, just out of nowhere, a top guy announces that he has to step away because he has cancer. He's not the first wrestler to be diagnosed with cancer while he was wrestling. He's probably not going to be the last. So shout out Roman Reigns, and let's get back to the lighthearted, under the radar show that we know and love. So first off, I appreciate you for standing by me with that long soliloquy. That probably was not very eloquent because I don't really know how to eloquate. See, I can't talk right now. If that dog would stop shaking her damn head and making all this goddamn noise. Jeez. Anyways, so last week I promised that I would set up an email account, and I did just that 5 minutes before I came on the air. I just remembered. And so if you guys want to send in emails, if you want to ask questions, you want to anything you want, it's open for interpretation. Whatever you want to send me, no dick pics. That's all I ask. No, don't send me anything inappropriate. Be smart, people. So if you want to ask any questions, as I said, it can be anything related, from sports, wrestling, pop culture, random stuff. Maybe if we get enough, we can do our own separate mailbag episode, and we can just turn this into a thing. And then if maybe there's one guy who just keeps emailing me questions, then it's just going to be me and that one guy. We're going to have a bond together. And he'll be like my co-host, even though he's not sitting next to me, but electronically he will be my co-host. So, as I keep blabbering on, the email is utrmailbag@gmail.com. So, under the radar, UTR, so UTR, mailbag@gmail.com. So, UTR, MAILBAG @gmail.com. There you go. So, let's get right on into it. We have some news to cover, and some big news to cover. I've been kind of vocal about my disapproval of the Saudi Arabia show taking place in 2 weeks, and it looks like John Cena is putting his foot down and standing his ground and saying that he is not going to be at Crown Jewel if it takes place at Saudi Arabia. Another person is Daniel Bryan, who seems to be very vocal in his disagreement of it. Daniel Bryan probably doesn't have as much pull as John Cena has, because at the moment it seems like John Cena is definitely a no-go if it is in Saudi Arabia. I don't know what they're going to do with Daniel Bryan if he ends up saying, I'm not doing it, I'm pulling out. Maybe they just put AJ Styles in the World Cup and just have him, fill in John Cena's spot. Daniel Bryan's not going to be there, so it's just you take that match off, and it's going to be a long show anyway, so are we really going to notice? And we're going to get maybe 2 or 3 AJ Styles matches on the night, so I can't complain there. They did not mention Saudi Arabia one time during Raw yesterday. There was one point in Braun Strowman's promo where he said that I'm going to kick Brock Lesnar's ass all around Crown Jewel, so that would have been like the perfect point where he would have said Saudi Arabia, and he didn't. So I think that was kind of the point where it's like, okay, yeah, they're definitely making it a point to not say Saudi Arabia in any of these promo packages, any of these announcements or promos or anything like that. And shout out John Cena and Daniel Bryan for standing their ground. And I know they're not the only ones. I know they're probably the most vocal ones, and I'm pretty sure there's a bunch of people on that crew that do not want to go to this. And either they don't have the pull to go, or it's just way too much money for them to turn down, and they know that they don't want to do it, but they're making so much money that they probably would make in 6 months or even a year's worth of pay just going over here for a house show that they can probably, take the night off despite having major jet lag and all that other political bullshit. Unless, there better be no political garbage being spewed during this Crown Jewel show if it is in Saudi Arabia. Tickets were supposed to go on sale last Friday, and I guess they didn't go on sale. I think WWE, I don't know, it just seems up in the air. You're 2 weeks away, major show. You gotta, shit or get off the pot. You got Evolution coming up this weekend. So, do they just put all the focus on Evolution and just be like, hey, look, we have the first ever all-women's pay-per-view coming up this weekend. Pay no attention to Saudi Arabia. It's coming up the week after, but look, we got women and equality and all that stuff while we take this money from this oppressive regime who kills journalists for doing their job. So, speaking of Evolution, Alexa Bliss might be out of the all-women's pay-per-view. Conspicuous by her absence, she was not in the segment with Lita Trish where they cut the promo, and then Alicia Fox comes out, and then her and Mickie James attack the two legends, and it looks like Alicia Fox is kind of in the bullpen getting ready, maybe going to be called upon if Alexa Bliss is not able to go. It seems as though she either had a concussion or a broken nose at a house show over the weekend with Ronda Rousey. No word on which one it is, how serious it is, or even whose fault it is. I know accidents happen. We were very vocal about Brie Bella's thing with Liv Morgan, so just got to be honest with ourselves. Ronda Rousey hasn't been wrestling all that long. Maybe she was doing one of those punches and it hit her in the nose or something. Who knows exactly what happens? It was a house show. We don't have any evidence or any footage of it. Hopefully Alexa Bliss is able to come back stronger than ever, because this is a big show for her. We all people kind of hate on her because she's kind of like a diva, kind of. She's not the best wrestler in the ring. She's a pretty girl, but she can talk her ass off. She's a good performer, and I think she definitely deserves to be on this show. And it'll be a shame if she's not. It's a big match, even though the build-up hasn't been the best, especially on Lita and Trish's end. I don't know if it's rust or just not having the same connection because they haven't been on TV in forever. But I think this tag match has kind of maybe fallen a little bit flat and hasn't lived up to the hype that people thought it was when they first announced that these Lita and Trish are going to come back. So, it is what it is. Hey! Knock it off. He's ashamed that Alexa Bliss might miss Evolution as well. So let's jump into the NXT TV report. We have the double main event with the War Raiders taking on the Undisputed Era, kicking off the show, and then to close the show, we had Bianca Belair and Nikki Cross. So as I said, the double main event was the War Raiders against Undisputed Era, which is Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong for the NXT Tag Team Championships. And good match going through. Went 12 minutes and 45 seconds. It ended via disqualification with Bobby Fish making his illustrious return. The War Raiders had Undisputed Era where they wanted them. And then, of course, Fish comes out, hits War Raiders with the chair, leaves them laying, and then we have all four. First, Adam Cole comes out, and his interference gets blocked, and then Bobby Fish comes out with the chair, and all hell breaks loose. So 4-on-2 attack, and the War Raiders are left laying while Undisputed Era are rejoicing, and everybody getting the band back together. Technically, the first time all four of them have been in the ring all healthy since Roderick Strong joined Undisputed Era once Bobby Fish got injured. So they said that this has been almost a year since Bobby Fish has been in the ring. He had his knee injury, and it looks like he's back. And so my premonition of this War Games with the War Raiders and Pete Dunne and Ricochet against the Undisputed Era seems to be coming to fruition. Probably. Who knows? So then we go backstage to Nikki Cross writing EST on a bunch of papers, and she goes, I know, and we keep getting crazy, funny, cute Nikki Cross. So, we have, damn it, dog, shut up. Okay, so now I'm back. I put a muzzle on the dog, so hopefully he shuts the fuck up now. Yeah, that's what I thought. So let's get back to it. We have Shayna Baszler going up against Britt Baker, who was in the All-In Fatal 4-Way, and is Adam Cole's baby, some might say. And she ends up losing to Shayna Baszler at 1 minute and 22 seconds via referee stoppage. And they really put over the fact they did the spot where Shayna puts Britt Baker's arm on the ground and kind of twists it, and her elbow sticking up, and then she steps on the arm, and it's a really good visual. And Britt Baker was selling it huge. I wanted to look up on the internet to see if it was legit or not, and for my deep research that I did, which is just a Google search and some Twitter, it seems like it was a work. It said that she's going to be back. She tweeted like when it first happened, like, oh, she'll be back in a couple weeks or something. So obviously nothing too major if it is like a legit injury, but it looked like it didn't. I'm not saying it felt real, but I thought this was a really good way to put over Shayna Baszler. Just a simple move she does all the time. Maybe it's a move that kind of gets overlooked just because of how devastating it is, and then it's kind of like no sold. It's kind of like the whole finger spot with Marty Scurll. It's like you're like dislocating their arm. At least that's what it looks like. It should be sold a lot more than what it actually is. And I like moves like this, and I like having squash matches that end with the person getting the win, winning with their moves that they don't like their secondary moves. So like just a simple move like that we see Shayna Baszler do all the time. Now that she's beaten somebody with it and hurt their shoulder, it puts it over. So next time, so when she faces against Kairi Sane in Evolution, it's going to be like a big thing, and it's going to be like, oh, if she hits this, the match might be over. And just going forward, like that can be a spot in every single match that she has. So just having this one spot where she puts somebody down this quickly, and yes, Britt Baker hasn't been on NXT. So people who see NXT and don't watch the indie scene and know a lot, they don't know who she is. So they just think, oh, she's just a regular jobber. But for people who know who she is, it kind of puts a little bit more credibility with Shayna Baszler, and it kind of gives Britt a little bit of an out because she got injured during the match. She didn't actually lose clean to her. So it kind of works both ways for them. William Regal was asked about Cross's claims on who attacked Aleister Black. He says that he doesn't know if she's lying or just nuts, but we will find out after her match tonight. So we had Oni Lorcan and Danny Burch taking on Tyne Bing and Rocky. Bing was unfortunately released from his WWE contract over the weekend, so a swan song for him. He gets on NXT on the TV taping, and now he's gone. And Oni Lorcan and Danny Burch made quick work of these guys. 2 minutes 24 seconds. Good match from them. Just putting Lorcan and Burch over strong after the comeback, and good for them. So then Bianca Belair was seen warming up backstage, and they announced that William Regal will make a major announcement about the NXT Championship match at TakeOver War Games next week, which is tomorrow. So we have Bianca Belair making her ring entrance, and then Nikki Cross comes out, and the main event was Nikki Cross going up against Bianca Belair at 11 minutes and 30 seconds to a no contest. A really, really good match from these two here. It ended up being a no contest because Aleister Black made his return to NXT. And I mean, as I said, the match was really good. I was hoping maybe they got a definitive winner. Maybe they're thinking putting Nikki over clean just to get this undefeated streak out of the way, because sometimes undefeated streaks can be a hindrance to the wrestlers. But nope, they kept Bianca Belair undefeated, didn't job out Nikki. So it kind of was the same thing as their first match where they had the whole cluster and nothing really was solved. So, but it did forward the storyline for them too, as well as the Aleister Black thing. They were definitely getting their way towards a good match. They were doing some high-flying spots. Belair was working over Cross. She used her hair as a whip, and it was good. I mean, maybe Bianca Belair's best match to date. Who knows? So, as I said, Aleister Black came out and was sitting there, and him and Nikki Cross locked eyes, and he told Nikki to come here and tell her what happened, and then she whispered something in his ear, and then Aleister Black gets all bug-eyed and crazy, and that's how we go off the air. So, this was a good show. Not a lot of promos, not a lot of storyline building, I would say. I mean, we have one more week, so I was thinking like, oh, they didn't do anything for Shayna Baszler and Kairi Sane, but obviously that match is taken this week, and we have one more show going forward, so obviously that match is going to built up, probably one of the focal points of the show, just kind of the go-home show for that match. It's kind of a weird spot where they're in a just one match is in a go-home setting, but then all the other matches are still waiting for over a month until the NXT War Games show happens. So I'm pretty sure the women's match is going to be a focal point of the show. Also, we have what's going to happen with Aleister Black. Aleister Black seems like he knows who did it, or at least Nikki Cross told him that somebody did it. I'm assuming Aleister is going to do something on this week's show. So, fun surprises with Fish and Black coming back. It changes the dynamic of NXT, having these two top guys return from their injuries. Happy to see Black come back so quickly, and definitely kind of gives a boost to the NXT product. So, that'll do it for NXT, and let's move on to the Mae Young Classic. So, this was the quarterfinal matches for the Mae Young Classic. 4 matches, all taking place in the quarterfinals. So, everybody who won moves on to the semifinals with this was the penultimate episode of the Mae Young Classic. Don't really get to use that word all that often. Every time I mean to say it, kind of slips my mind. So, we have the penultimate edition of the Mae Young Classic. Before the finals at, whatchamacallit? Evolution. We had Lacey Lane going up against Mike. Oh my god, I'm going to butcher her name again. Satomura. We're just going to go with the last name. Last name, a lot easier. Pretty straightforward match. Satomura kind of goes over pretty strong here. Definitely dominated most of the match. Lane she made a little bit of a comeback, hitting her with a kick and a kind of a roll-up. So Lane got some of her offense in, but definitely Satomura was the veteran. She got a lot of offense in, and it just put her over strong. Made a whole lot of sense. That was a story going in. Satomura has been wrestling, I think, almost as long as Lane's been alive, so it made sense of having Satomura kind of dominate the rookie. And that's kind of what happens in basketball. They just are in the NCAA tournament. Just you have those Cinderellas, and they kind of make their deep run, and then they hit that 1 or 2 seed, and they lose. They just get blown out because at the end, it all comes down to talent, and they have their run. But for the most part, the Cinderella never wins the tournament. And Lacey Lane was kind of the Cinderella of the tournament, kind of a nobody coming out and making a little bit of a run. But in the end, Satomura wins, and that sets up a possible match with somebody. It's going to be very interesting to see, as I just almost spoiled it, but I didn't, because now you're going to have to wait and see who she faces. So now we have Io Shirai going up against Deonna Purrazzo, and in the end, Io Shirai wins to advance to the semifinals. And these women worked really hard. Great match, I wouldn't say great match, but really good match, back and forth. Definitely even in terms of like offense, going back and forth. Io Shirai gets some offense in, and then Purrazzo gets some offense in. Shirai maintained the advantage for most of it, but Purrazzo was credible in her offense. And one thing is, Io Shirai hits the Acai moonsault for her victories. And what is this, the quarterfinals? So she's had 3 matches. I think she's hit in all 3 matches. And I haven't seen a lot of her work. So I don't know if it's just she's having off timing or whatever. It's a different ring, so she's not hitting as cleanly. But she just kind of reminds me of Lita, where she does a moonsault. And the moonsault, like, when she's flying through the air, it looks beautiful. But she never, like, hits the woman in like the right spot. She either is too long or she's too wide. She goes too far, she goes too short. Because I think like the first one she hit, when she was facing Brookside, I think she just nailed Brookside right in the chest or right in the stomach with her knees because she was too short on it. And this one, she was a little too long. Michael Cole tried to cover up for her a little bit, saying, I didn't think she got enough of it, but she still won. So, it is what it is. So now Io Shirai will go on to face Rhea Ripley in the semifinals, because Rhea Ripley took on Tegan Nox, and this was a big news story coming out of the TV tape, and I totally forgot about it until they aired it last week, and it made the rounds again on the internet, and just devastating news. Tegan Nox, who I've kind of poo-pooed on her a little bit because Michael Cole was kind of just so big and putting her over, and I just didn't really see it in her. I mean, at least during the Mae Young Classic, but so she blew out her ACL last year before the Mae Young Classic, so she couldn't wrestle. So then she comes back a year later and she ends up wrestling. She makes it to the quarterfinals, taking on Rhea Ripley. Who knows who was actually going to win? I think Rhea Ripley going up against Io Shirai made a lot of sense. So I think Rhea was supposed to win regardless. But Tegan Nox ends up going for a suicide dive really early on in the match, like first minute, maybe in 45 seconds. And she ends up tearing her other knee up. I don't know. I can't remember if they've like figured out what to say. I mean, what the actual injury is, but I just assume she just maybe tore the ACL in her other knee. But this just sucks. I mean, you get one knee injury, you come back a year later, then you mess up the other knee. That just has to ruin the psyche. And I mean, I don't want to relate it back to Roman Reigns because what he's dealing with is a life and death situation. But I mean, that's tough right there. With Tegan Nox, I mean, she was like visibly crying, especially at the end. I mean, okay, so what happened was that she goes for the suicide dive. She lands awkwardly. It's not exactly obvious that she like tore her knee up, and she's like walking around and she's kind of pushing off the referee and the trainer saying she's fine, she can still do it, but she's noticeably limping. She's definitely in pain. Rhea Ripley, being a pro, she's just kind of giving her some chops, not making her do a whole lot of offense. And then Tegan does something where she's like making a little bit of a comeback. Tegan runs to the ropes, goes to hit Rhea, and then I think that's just when it popped or something got even worse, because that's when Tegan fell down to the ground. She threw up an X, and then that's when the referee called for the bell. So I think this might be a little bit of stubborn pride, kind of like what happened with Seth Rollins back when he tore up his knee against that house show in Europe with Kane. And like that's the thing with wrestlers. I mean, I don't want to go out. I mean, I don't want to poo-poo on somebody for trying to finish a match and trying to have heart. But on the other hand, it's like, it's the Mae Young Classic. Yes, it's a big deal. It's a big part of your career, but you got to think, if you tear up your knee again, maybe you never wrestle again. Maybe you at least you're taking another year out of your career. That's money out of your pocket. And it looked like she might have like sprained something or hurt something the first time, but then with her wrestling on it for another 2 to 3 minutes, that's when it really tore up her knee. And that's what kind of happened with Seth Rollins. He initially did the sunset flip, he twisted it, and it looked really bad visually, but then he still wrestled on it, and then he kept doing more stuff on it, and that's maybe he tore his ACL on the first thing, or he barely tore it. And then he does more things, and then he tears his MCL and his PCL, and he tore like every other thing that he could possibly tear because he did all the other stuff in the match. And with Tegan, I feel like it was the same thing. Is she hurt something at first, and she just made it worse by continuing to wrestle, and that's just something that I don't know it's ever going to change, because I know athletes do it all the time where they're hurt but they don't. There's a difference between hurt and injured, and people and athletes definitely need to figure out what the difference is, because when you're hurt, you can still go, but when you're injured, you need to shut it down, because when you injure yourself, you're putting at risk your body in general, putting other people's body, especially when you're a wrestler. And I mean, I don't know what to say. Hopefully Tegan doesn't get, labeled as fragile or whatever like that, but I think Rhea played it up perfectly. She kind of just had the whole demeanor like, oh, shit happens. That sucks for her, and she just kind of had this little smug demeanor, and I thought Rhea played it up perfectly. I didn't feel like she was too dangerous with Tegan. She didn't take advantage of her. She didn't make her do any extra things. It was Tegan that really aggravated it more by running the ropes. So, I mean, hats off to Rhea for maybe noticing that something was really wrong, so she didn't want to. I mean, it was early in the match, so obviously nothing was planned, like any big spots were planned at that moment, probably. But I mean, it would have been easy for Rhea to just toss her around the ring and, do something, or maybe even go after the knee, even if it wasn't planned, but who knows. And Rhea moves on to the semifinals. Thoughts and prayers with Tegan Nox. Hopefully she can come back. And the crowd was just dead silent. They definitely all realized what was going on. She has the visible knee brace on her right knee, and then with her clutching the other knee, it's obvious. Anybody could see, like, oh man, she fucked up her other knee, and now she's going to be gone for another year, and it just sucks. I mean, that's the price you have to pay sometimes, but never good to see anybody get injured. So next up, we have the main event with the Mia Yim going up against Toni Storm. And Toni Storm wins the match in by far the best match of the night. Just two great wrestlers, Mia Yim being the crafty veteran, Toni Storm being the hot upcoming, superstar at this point. She's probably one of the biggest stars in the tournament, and she definitely proved it here, having a great match with Mia Yim. One of the better matches of the show, of the tournament, and yeah, Mia Yim ends up getting a contract signed with WWE, and I said it last week, and I'm pretty sure her performance, she was probably on the bubble to be signed, but her performance during the Mae Young Classic, definitely a standout performer, and congratulations on getting signed. So, good for them. So this sets up Toni Storm going up against Satomura, and that should be a fantastic match. So we have two matches next week, or this week rather, to set up the finals in the Mae Young Classic. Unfortunately, I do know who wins both matches, so I do know the finals for the Mae Young Classic. I'm not going to spoil it for you. If you want to find out, there's spoilers, there's all that other stuff, but I don't want to spoil it for anybody, because I know, for me, the matches where I didn't know that, because I only knew spoilers for the finals, so I only knew the two women who were end up going to win every single match. So, but all the other matches where I didn't know who was going to win, those are really enjoyable. Like the match last week with Mia Yim and Caitlyn, I thought that match was fantastic, just because I didn't know exactly who was going to win, so I had the emotional connection that I should have had. So I feel like looking at spoilers takes the fun away from wrestling. So that's what kind of sucked, because I did see the spoiler of Roman Reigns and the spoiler of the Seth Rollins Dean Ambrose win. I didn't exactly see the spoiler of the heel turn, so I kind of saw something was coming, but I didn't exactly know about that. So, to end the show, as always, we have the Total Divas recap, and let's just jump into it. Paige, this was kind of a serious episode. Paige talked about her iCloud hack. She kind of talked about, the episode kind of started off with her just she was out in the parking lot, just kind of hobnobbing with fans, taking selfies, shaking hands, and all that other stuff. And some dick just kind of came by with the in a car and was like, "Oh, I loved your whole movie. Can't wait for the sequel," and stupid shit like that. And Paige was hot, and Paige just kind of she did the whatever you call it, like the inset interview, or the, I don't know what the hell you call that in reality TV, but she did her interview, and she kind of talked about her reaction to it and what it's been like over the last year with her whole iCloud hack. And it's serious stuff. Just, you thought you had these private moments, and now the entire world sees it. So so that was kind of the main storyline of Paige, just kind of getting over that. And the Bella Twins, she hung out with the Bella Twins, and they kind of had some friendliness going back and forth. They go to some car lot, and they bash in some doors and some windows and let out some of their aggression. And with Paige and the whole iCloud hack, and her not having to wrestle, and with Nikki Bella not being with John Cena anymore. So sad, so sad. The other storyline was Nia Jax invited over some friends, which was Natalya, Lana, and Naomi, because Nia Jax bought a new house, and everybody thought that they were just going to have a party and just kind of hang out and have a nice weekend to themselves, since they don't have a lot of those, being on the road all the time. But no, Nia Jax made them assemble some furniture and do some other things, because she's a single woman buying a house, so she didn't want to spend money on movers and all that other stuff. So the girls threw a little bit of hissy fit, because they thought they were going to have a party, or at least hang out with their friend, and yet now they're doing hard labor and setting up couches and shelves. So some of the girls left, or I guess all the girls left, to go to like a hotel to actually sleep in a bed, because they had to sleep on the floor while Nia was sleeping in her bed in her room, and blah 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 blah. And Lana, wanting to take the brass ring like she's been trying to do the past couple episodes, she decides to dye her hair pink to try something different. And she gets pink hair dye all over Nia Jax's walls. We get a naked Lana showering, which got to get those ratings up, even though you don't see anything. It's all censored anyways. But Lana just trying to grab the brass ring and try to get some news and make some movement on her career. And Mark Carrano calls her into the office, thinking that she's going to get a slap on the wrist for dyeing her hair pink. But no, She is told that she will be going with Rusev, and now she will be on TV, and now she's on TV with Rusev every week now, so good for Lana. So that'll do it for the Total Bellas review, as that dog is barking in the background. I don't even know if you can hear it, but I can hear it, and it's really pissing me off. So we're going to wrap it up while I smack that dog and put a muzzle on him. I will be back for the Bulletcast this Friday, my illustrious return. So make sure to email them, or I guess us, at bulletcast2sweet. That is the number 2 sweet at gmail.com. And once again, if you want to email me any questions, it can be whatever you want. I guarantee it. If you email me the question, I will answer it on this podcast. I know I might be opening up a can of worms, and I don't know what I'm expecting. I don't know if anybody's even email me. But if you want to email me, I guarantee you it'll be read on the podcast. It might be if you send me a stupid question, I will answer your stupid question with a stupid response, because I will, if you put in thought and you write out a thoughtful question, I will give it a thoughtful answer. But if you give me some bullshit answer or bullshit question that is just, I don't even want to go down that rabbit hole of what it would be, I will give you that same energy back. So the mailbag for Under the Radar is just that. It is utrmailbag at gmail.com. Now UTI, like what goes on down there, it is utrmailbag at gmail.com. So email me by next Tuesday around 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Western Time. I don't know what that is. Hawaiian time. What is that? 12 o'clock Hawaiian time? So, that'll do it for me for today. Thank you guys very much for listening. And goodbye and good night. Bye.